Hello and welcome today, everybody, to Latokan VCTV. Today is another show on a bright sunny day where we'll be discussing a lot about another topic on food technology and e commerce. What are the emerging technologies that are arriving in this space and what can be done in the future prospects? Let's discuss today all about it. Joining with me today are Ashish Wadhwani from Singapore, Kingsley from Japan, and Shreya from New Delhi, India. So let's have a short introduction about each of them, the kind of work they have done so far. So let's start with Ashish. A short introduction about you and the kind of work that you have done so far.
Thank you, Amit. It's a pleasure to be back. And I run Ivy Cap Ventures, which is a venture capital fund built around the alumni ecosystem of the India's leading technology and business schools. Uh, we are in our third fund now, and we invest across basically Series A, Series B, and a little bit of pre-Series A. We've done more than 20 investments now, almost 30 actually, from the two funds that we have. Uh, Consumer and food tech is one key area. Of course, we do B2B also. We do health tech also, but consumer and food tech is a very key area, uh, and we are delighted to be here.
Great, thanks, Ashish. Shreya, about you. What is your background and the kind of work you have done in the venture capitalist industry?
So, hi everybody. I'm glad to be here on VCTV today. I'm calling in from Delhi from Venture Gurukul Capability Fund. We are an early stage fund that is fairly sector agnostic. We invest in all and everything that are digitally transforming the way India is interacting, transacting, eating, surfing, exchanging, and engaging with each other. We tend to invest in early stage, so from seed to series A. We have a very flexible ticket size, and we are looking at more and more technology based food tech and ag tech ventures, because I feel we feel that there is a lot of white space in the ecosystem where a lot of new gen startups can bring in innovation in terms of ingredients, in terms of processes, and that's the kind of value chain we are trying to build here. And yes, so that's what we are here at. And all and every entrepreneur that's listening in today, you're more than welcome to give us a shout out on LinkedIn or through VCTV platform and get in touch with us. We'd be happy to hear about your ventures. Thank you.
Thanks, Shreya. Thanks for that. Kingsley, over to you.
Yeah,
Introduction about you and the kind of work you have done so far.
thanks, Ahmed. My name is Kingsley Kobayashi. I'm the chairman of Kobayashi Group. We invest in the blockchain ecosystem. We invest in commercial real estate. Hurricane International does trading, does investment in every area. And then you have HBK Pharmaceuticals that are into natural medicine. So we are very versatile in investing. Healthcare, telemedicine, agriculture is a very viable place to agri-tech to invest in. Food tech has its difficulties, but I think we're here to talk about how to make that better.
Thanks, Kingsley. Let's move on. Let's move on with our first question. This is a very basic question that I want to ask. Do you enjoy ordering food online? And if it is so, what is the famous app that you use to order food online? Let's start with Ashish from Singapore.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, no, of course. I think everyone enjoys ordering food. Food is a very personally engaging category. So I think consumers derive a lot of pleasure and delight out of food. Uh, and the whole experience of ordering food online has uh, changed dramatically over the last several years, particularly during COVID. And I can't see anyone not enjoying ordering food because there's so much more variety, so much more. You can do it impromptu. You don't have to step out. So much more convenient. And you get a range of restaurants that you possibly did not know of in the past. So that's obviously the positive side of the experience that you have while ordering food.
So Ashish, what is your top food app that you use in Singapore to order food?
Well, I mean,
I mean,
uh,
in generally.
we use Grab here, Food Panda. In India, of course, when I was traveling there, it was Swiggy and Zomato. Uh, sometimes I can order food from here for, let's say, a friend or some family member in India, which is just fantastic. So I end up using apps cross border.
Great, great, Ashish. So food brings us a smile to everyone's face. So Shreya, you're smiling a lot. So what kind of food do you like, and what food app do you use mostly?
So food makes everybody smile. I think coming from a rich Asian culture, food is a very, very important part of our life. And even conversation for that matter. I think my day starts with what you want to have for breakfast and ends with, oh, what do you want to take for lunch tomorrow to work? So food does make me happy as an individual as well. I order food online almost maybe twice a week, if not more, and I use Zomato for more often than not. And while because I've studied in the UK, so I used to order a lot of Uber Eats. I think it was one of the most convenient platforms that I'd used. And food discovery is something that is more of an add-on or a value add I feel in these apps. Like not just the user interface or how easy it is or the number of less steps you can use to place an order, but it is how many restaurants or how many dishes would somebody have on their platform. So platform like Just Eats from UK, where you could just discover restaurants that serve a particular dish. I think something like that. And this feature is also available in Zomato and Swiggy now. So I feel apps that can add value in terms of making food discovery a thing and being able to order more seamlessly and having all kinds of payment platforms integrated. I feel those are the apps that I tend towards, like I lean towards. Zomato is completely payment friendly. I can choose to do UPI, credit cards, or any of those wallets. So I am a Zomato loyalist here. So yeah.
Thanks, Shreya. Moving to Kingsley. Kingsley, do you enjoy ordering food online? And what is the famous food app that you use in Japan?
Yeah, honestly speaking, I am not a food ordering person. I enjoy food very well. I love food very well. I enjoy going out to eat. I enjoy when my wife cook because my wife cooks a lot. But when we were locked down in Nigeria, we had to adapt because you could not move. So when you cannot move, you have no other choice than to adapt to what you have. So we started ordering with Uber, and I think one of the ones really like them was Johnny Rockets Burger, right? We used to order Johnny Rockets Burger or KFC Burger or things like that, or Indian food online or Thai food online. In Japan, food is still number one. Uh, a lot of restaurants use Uber for their food. I'm also in the hospitality business, so we also have a few restaurants that does use Uber to deliver to people.
Great. Thanks, Kingsley, for that. Moving on to the next question, let's move a little deeper towards investment. So, what kind of behavior in the consumer has triggered these kind of food tech startups to, like, mushroom out, like boom? What kind of consumer behavior has spurred this kind of startups to grow? And what are the key challenges does this startups solve for the consumers? apart from just ordering food and getting tasty food in your onto your table. So let's start with Ashish.
Well, you asked about consumer behavior. I think let's look at demographics, right? I think that's one of the big drivers. I think there's a lot of young urban consumers for whom convenience and variety is a big deal. Uh, I think living in big cities in India, it's often very difficult to, or even in Singapore, it's difficult to get people to make and carry food, right? And I guess if you just go to the same restaurant which is nearby, it's not fun enough. So uh, the that's the second driver of why food delivery is interesting and coming up. But I mean, if you look at food as a category, I mean, it's so obviously so widely consumed, along with grocery and maybe medicine. It reaches far more individuals and therefore far more cities and towns than, let's say, urban transport would, right? So if you compare it with an Uber or a Grab, uh, food has a larger TAM than an Uber or Grab, because uh, food delivery is hot in tier three, tier four towns also, whereas Uber may not be as penetrated in those markets. So, from a consumer standpoint, I think the ubiquitous smartphone uh, and platforms have made it possible for them to go choose online and impromptu order. Uh, I think there's a lot of sort of the other driver, obviously, is got to be the uh, income levels that you see in this millennial age group. Uh, that's been a driver. Certainly, COVID has been a big driver because of lockdowns and social distancing issues. People have tended to order from home. So these are some of the top three or four drivers that I can think of.
Thanks, Ashish. Shreya, what do you
I'll
think?
come to
What are
challenges
what?
later.
Sorry, Ashish.
Yeah, I'll come to challenges. You asked the challenges part of the question, which I can address once we've gone down the table.
Yes, sure. We'll do in the next round of questions. So, Shreya, what do you think? What are the key behaviors of the users that has driven the food tech platforms to grow rapidly?
I completely agree with what Ashish has said. And given that I'm part of the demographic that he's talking about, who don't have much time or maybe even lack of interest to cook my own lunch. So yes, one is the point that everybody now has a smartphone and an OTT app they can download and very easily in 4 taps place an order for anything from ice cream to a pizza to even a fancy sushi outlet. So one would be the fact that availability of smartphones and internet penetration in these addressable markets, especially Southeast Asia, where where the demographic is fairly young and would like to experiment with their palates, would like to see more and more startups. Everybody's switching in from healthy eating and going on a cheat diet or a non-cheat diet. So as long as there are restaurants and there are platforms that are catering to these diverse palates, I'd like to say, and diets, I think they do fairly well. And I think the other consumer preference is the fact that uh, it's all convenience based. An app, like as I said, I'm a Zomato loyalist, and I would from one switch to the other, I'd book a restaurant to go in and have like book a table at a restaurant, and if just in case my reservation doesn't get confirmed in the next 15-20 minutes, I'd simply switch it to a delivery or a takeout mode of it and place the same order online and get them to deliver to me. So things like that, features like such are what are, I'm assuming, driving consumers to different platforms. And the sheer convenience of getting your McDonald's burger without stepping out of your house, and especially if you live in a 2 BHK like I do, you don't even have to step out of probably your room, and it's delivered. I think the sheer convenience of these apps of getting food on your table is what is driving their success, I believe.
Great, thanks, Shreya. Kingsley, your views on the demography of Japan, or
Uh,
what kind of behavior is triggering the food tech industry to to boom.
okay. Let's not forget that the food tech industry has been around since the 2014, 2015, and they didn't really succeed. So what catapulted the food tech is COVID-19. COVID-19 was a platform for food tech to grow because people could not leave their homes. And when you cannot leave your home, you are not going to be eating one kind of food every day. So people need to diversify. They need to have different kind of foods. So this actually boosted food tech because people could not order. Normally, every child or every human being in Japan has a smartphone. I mean, if you are 11, my 11 years old already have 11 Pro or 12 Pro. So it is easy to order whatever food you want to order through any applications you want to order from. You can decide to have Indian this morning, have Chinese in the evening, have Thai the other day. So I think the COVID-19 actually the major factor that drove food tech forward. Another factor is the workforce. The workforce right now, kind of in Japan, work very long hours, work very hard. So it is convenient for them to just, okay, I'm not going to start cooking when I get home. Let me just order something. So it's very quick, it's convenient, it's time saving, and those are one of the major factors that actually boosted it. But the most important one is COVID-19 because without COVID-19, we won't be talking about food tech.
Correctly said, Kingsley. COVID-19 has kind of set acted as a propellant for this food tech industry because while I was working from home and I was staying at my apartment, the only industry, only business that was working was the food tech industry, where the
Yes.
online platforms for food delivery was working. So this is completely true, and I agree with you. So yeah, moving on to the next question. Let's talk to the supply chain side of the things, where logistics and supply chain side of the things, and what kind of challenges, maybe what kind of challenges and what kind of factors come into play when we try to when we try to safely deliver the food. So let's hear from Ashish.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question because that's where the complexity and is, in our view, one of the success factors of a good food delivery, company. If you leave out and there are two parts to it. One is obviously the platforms, and second is the cloud kitchens and the direct to customer businesses. Let me take the second one first, but let's start with the consumer, right? What is the consumer looking for? The consumer is looking for good quality food, uh, tasty and consistent quality delivered on time, right? So it's and of course at a price which at a price point that they want. Now, if you just take these consumer needs and ask the question, what does the supply chain need to do in order to meet these requirements? I mean, it starts to become very complex. I mean, how do you really deliver good quality food consistently at at the right service levels over a period of time? So there's a lot of automation and operational excellence that goes on in the supply chain. A lot of service supply chain sourcing issues that go on at the back end, which successful companies will have to crack. I mean, and to me, that's the secret sauce. It's not, and again, depending on the cuisine. I mean, if you take a lot of Indian cuisine, and if you take even many of the Southeast Asian cuisines, they're not exactly of the kind which are, uh, let's say, uh, easily standardized, right? And transported or very easily. For instance, it's easier to uh, order in pizza at home than to order in burger, because the burger might lose taste and lose its form, or uh, the taste might change because of the transportation delays, right? Similarly, so the food must be able to be let's say logistics friendly. It's not meant to be dine-in. So many of these factors come in, and if you start thinking of how to really source raw material so that you can make consistent food, how do you really automate your kitchens so that you make it absolutely of high quality standards, safe, clean food, right? And then how do you have the delivery infrastructure in place in order to be deliver it consistently over a period of time? How do you plan your cloud kitchens in a way so that the time from order to delivery is not something that makes the consumer impatient? These finally, if you put all these together, it makes for a very, very complex supply chain, and also for operational excellence, right? So I think these are some of the things, factors that successful uh, D2C brands in the food space have to pick up. And on the platform side, of course, it's consumer, their data, uh, and also the logistics part of it, right? They also have to build a network of restaurants. Now, on the platform side, it's not easy to build a network of, let's say, Thai restaurants, or let's say, I mean, how many Mughlai or North Indian food chains are there in North India, for instance, right? Uh, Very, very few, you know. At scale, almost none, you know. So how does a platform really onboard so many different types of restaurants, and then also have the logistics to make sure they get delivered? But on the other hand, have the data to really know what the preferences and choices of the consumer is, so that they can prompt them with those choices and deliver it consistently. So both very complex businesses, not easy at all.
Thanks, Ashish. Shreya, coming to Shreya, what are your views on the key challenges that might this food tech industry and the supply chain industry might be facing in order to solve a good food delivery?
So, for the food delivery platforms or cloud kitchens, as Ashish just mentioned, I feel having a strong supply chain is what would lead to scalability. Like a food platform or even a D2C cloud kitchen brand would be able to create a hype with a one-off, just a one-off pop-up or one odd cloud kitchen in a in a certain district or a geography. So that can be done, but if you actually want to grow, become something that can be easily scalable and be a plug and play, that you pick a cloud kitchen from New Delhi and pick it up and put it in Bangalore, from Bangalore you pick it up and put it in Singapore. So for that you need to have stronger supply chains in both ways. That do you have a consistent supply chain for your raw materials? Are you able to consistently manage your food production? Are you able to have the necessary hygiene standards? And then coming on to how do you automate your whole process, from your customer placing an order to it going to your kitchen, and then from your kitchen to being able to either sell it through the platform, so integrating your platform like a Zomato or a Swiggy or a Grab, or having your own third party logistics that does your last mile delivery, as we call it. So I believe that supply chain is a key challenge, but if that challenge gets its right kind of solution, I think that that would lead to a platform's larger scalability for sure. And I think with India's last mile delivery trying to, cover all the gaps and, cross all the bridges, I feel there's a lot of potential in being able to do this as a stronger business model, because with players like Ninja Card that are automating and streamlining the whole raw material process, like you know uh, integrating the Horeca, the whole hotels, restaurants, and catering segment with the farmers on the first, as a direct supply chain. That works. And then with smaller third party and last mile logistics service providers, I think those kinds of supply chains are kind of doing their job that they need to, and now all restaurants and food providers need to do is make sure that they can maintain a hygienic, clean, good food environment where their reviews, where their quality does not get questioned, because the the largest grievance situation comes into play is either when the food is badly delivered or bad food is delivered. These are the only two complaints you're going to get. So so the platform or your logistics partner can take the onus of food being badly delivered, but bad food will always put more things in question and would lead to a whole cuisine getting banned from a particular geography or a particular district or colony, if I want to say so, that that area is not getting good quality food. So I think that's what it has to be. That's first consistent supply chains. I think all these three vertical players have to work in tandem and work out this challenge, because I think that's the greatest challenge this industry faces.
Thanks, Shreya. Those were insightful and really applicable to Indian ecosystem. Moving towards the ecosystem of Nigeria in Africa, particularly, what kind of challenges do this food tech startups face in the ecosystem of Nigeria, or on the larger scale, like for Africa? Kingsley.
Honestly, I've been in Japan for 30 years, so asking me about Africa is difficult to answer, but I will answer that very well. It's mostly logistics to start with. You have there's because of the heavy traffic, food is better when delivered on time. So, for example, in Japan, you don't have that problem because if they tell you 10:30, your food is going to be there before 10:30. So if you ask for food to be delivered to you in a place like Lagos in Nigeria, with the traffic and everything, you will get the food 30 minutes or 40 minutes or even 1 hour later. This happened to me. Now, I do agree with what the other two speakers have said about marrying all together. What is important about the food is, first of all, the freshness, which means you have to marry agri-tech with food tech. You have to have a constant supply of fresh food to come, right? And then when you have that, you can control your own kitchen and make sure it's hygienic. But how do you control the logistics from where the food is taken to the customer door? Anything can happen. So packaging comes into play. How do you package your food that it can be opened by the person transporting it? Right? This is the most important thing we have to think about. Anything can happen with food between the kitchen and the customer. And who takes the responsibility? Is it the guy cooking, or is it the guy that took the food? No, so there is a lot of things we have to look into here. But when it comes to Africa food delivery, I think we are still very far off in making that happen. A lot of companies are using bikes, which is very good. When I was there, I saw a lot of bikes, but accident happens. You cannot really run through the traffic and things like that, so it's delayed. So how do you make this faster? How do you make the food to get? For example, you make sushi. Sushi is a very delicate food. Even in Japan, they have some sushi they will not deliver to you because you are supposed to eat it right there. So how do you make sure that it get to the customer in the way it should be? fresh, not stale, not staying 20 minutes on the way or 30 minutes on the way? Are you going to use dry ice? Are you going to use, what are you going to use? So people really need to think about what they are delivering. Like he rightly said, delivering pizza and delivering chicken masala is different. Delivering African food is very different because you have swallow, you have the soup, it may get bad before it gets there. With the bike waving up and down, it may get speed, and then when you bring it out, your hands are all oily. So how do you make sure it is well catered for to get to the consumer? There's a lot of things that need to be put into consideration, both in Africa, both in developed countries that think we are doing it already. I don't think we are actually there yet. There's a lot of room to grow, and it is those room that we have to grow that we are willing to invest in. Like, how do you invest in a packaging cannot be opened until you get to the customer? If it is open, then there is something that goes wrong and say, oh, this food is not good anymore. How do you maintain that spaghetti does not get stale before it gets to the other end? These are things we have to look at. So investing in the food tech is very, very important. Is the next thing to happen, but a lot of factors have to play for it to make it happen. So whoever is investing in it have to make sure that, okay, you look at the agri-tech part of it. Are they getting fresh food? The kitchen, is it well organized? Are they hygienic, like she rightly said? Then the packaging, is it packaged in a way that if we get to the customer the way it's supposed to? It will not be open on the way. Thirdly, how fast? Time. It's important. How fast can it get to the customer? Bad food, good food, bad transport, like she said, come play. Who take responsibility for that? So these are the kind of things I think we should look at worldwide, not just in developing countries. Yes, there are more problems in developing countries because of infrastructure, because of logistics. Also in developed countries, we have the same problem.
Great. Thanks, Kingsley. Moving to the next question, towards innovation. What kind of innovations or what kind of innovative solutions are you looking to invest in this food chain industry? Like right from the farm till to the plate, like farm to fork, what kind of gaps do you consider is very, very important? You identified few gaps, and what kind of investments are you trying to look for? So Ashish.
Well, the way you have defined the question from farm to fork, it's a very wide range, and I would say there is white spaces all over the place and disruption opportunities all over the space. Uh, but I mean, some of the things that we certainly like, I think there is a huge gap in direct to customer brands and chains, which are basically cloud kitchens and direct to customer. So less the cloud kitchens, but those who are building a brand, which is direct to customers. In fact, we have invested in one of them. Uh, Besides that, I think farm to fork, there are lots of other opportunities. I think fresh organics, fresh food, fruits and vegetables. Those are some of the obvious ones, and no one really has built, or very few people have built anything of scale in that space. And there's a lot of work to be done. Besides this, I think the technology leading up to this, as Shreya mentioned, some of the solutions on the supply chain side, which enable the hospitality and restaurant segments, and which enable restaurants to be able to source well, for instance, or those are important. There are we are also quite keen to see some of the cloud kitchen automation opportunities. I think that's quite niche, but it's not like you can set up the same thing with the same equipment and expect to meet the service levels and quality levels that customers expect. So greater investments and unique startups on the automation side of things. Those are important. I think on the food to farm to fork, uh, I would expect sort of category wise brands to come up. For instance, we know companies which are building their entire supply chain around bananas and pomegranates in India. Similarly, you could do one for several other several other fruits and vegetables, but also some kind of an aggregation play over there, which manages to put all these things together and get it to the consumer. So those are some segments that personally I'm excited about. I think organic is another big one which has not been done. And by the way, since you're talking about farm, I think this whole uh, meat replacements or plant-based meat products, that's another big one. I think that's, there's several people trying to do that. Several brands have done it successfully, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to scale in this part of the world.
Great. Thanks, Ashish. Shreya, over to you. What kind of innovations and what kind of investments are you looking forward?
So, as Ashish mentioned, he touched on a point that's very close to my heart is organic farming. So I am really interested in trying to find these farm linkages where organic food and produce is easily available and kind of reduces the time it takes from harvest to coming to your plate. So I'm looking and trying to identify regional players that can eventually, after like after a point, that scalability is not going to come, because you can't just pick up a farm and take it to somewhere unless it's hydroponic or aeroponic situation. So that is somewhere that I am looking very actively, not necessarily looking at an aggregator that's doing B2C or B2B, 2C rather for that matter, but we are looking for organic farms that could probably have modeled their business in such a way that you could pick it up for a different geography and a different organic product and place it in different regions, especially in India. So that is something that we are looking at. And there's another thing is that I come from a family who doesn't like doing food wastage. So being able to identifying the problem, the fact that India and the world loses a lot of food on just trying to transport it from a farm to and retail chain or a restaurant. So I am also looking at post harvest um, chemicals or sprays or all organic solutions that increase the shelf life of produce, especially fruits and vegetables and leafy greens. So that is something that I'm looking at in terms of ag tech that kind of overlaps with food tech. And when it comes to actual food tech and delivery space, we are looking for SaaS based platforms that see like automate and make this whole process very seamless, making these offline small chain restaurants or dhabas as we call them here in India, street food vendors, having platforms that kind of not aggregate but maybe standardize street food or standardize local affordable food, because it's very easy for a high end or a decent B2C brand like Ivy Cap's portfolio company Biryani by Kilo can go on to a Zomato, but one of these smaller stores might not be able to. So platforms that can easily convert these offline restaurants to online restaurants, find ways to integrate hygiene levels, standard levels into their platforms. That is something that we are looking at. And logistics overall with the whole e-commerce play, and linking all of the pin codes that we have in India. Last mile delivery is always everybody's area of priority. So yeah, that's the kind of things I'm looking at.
Thanks, Shreya. Moving to Kingsley, kind of investments you are looking at.
Very good. They've almost covered everything, but I believe that the agri tech is very important. How using AI, using technology to monitor them, and then getting the food to the kitchen. Uh, Now we are using telemedicine, telehealthcare, teleconsultation. We are using StreamYard right now to talk, right? I can see you. So what's up them from bringing up an innovation that will make you see the kitchen that they are cooking at, right? If there's an innovation that says, okay, we're going to deliver you food, but you can go on our platform and watch us cook your food. So we actually know what you are cooking. We can actually see you cooking the food. We can see how hygienic you are. We can also see how now you have, for example, Uber telling you, okay, it's moving here. They tell you where it's taken. But what happens if there is a transportation, logistics that actually show you that this guy is not wasting time, this guy is not taking the food out of the bag. These are things that have not been looked at. These are innovations that I am expecting in the food tech. Innovations that will reassure the customer, the consumer, that he's having the quality he wants to have, that the kitchen is hygienic enough. Right now we can see each other. So if you are able to see the chef in and it's not sneezing on the food, you are more, you are more, how do I put it? You are more uh, confident to eat that food, right? You are more confident to eat that food. And then if you also see the logistics going and then coming to your door, you are also more confident in eating that food. So these are areas that when it comes to food tech, what goes into our stomach is very important. We all care about that more than anything. So being able to see it. Why do people go to restaurant? You want to see what they are cooking. You want to see how it look like. You want to see the environment. When I go to a restaurant, the first thing I do is I walk into the toilet. No matter how good the restaurant is, if the toilet is dirty, I am leaving, because that shows the kitchen is dirty too. They don't clean up. So small things like this have to be shown on teleview or phone for us to see how they're actually making it, how they're actually transporting it till when they deliver it. If there is anything like this, believe me, I am willing to invest today, not even tomorrow. You give me that and you are doing that. That is an investment that is worth your money into, because seeing is believing. Nothing more. When it comes to food, you see how it's made, you see where the farm it comes from, you see how it's delivered to your door, you will put your money in it, and you will lose.
Thanks, Kingsley. As you said, these are the key areas that IoT and blockchain will come into picture to actually create the transparency of the food that is being prepared and delivered to your doorstep. As well as IoT will play a greater role in these kind of scenarios where when you will be able to get the micro data from each at each step, like the body temperature of the people who is
Yes.
cooking, or maybe the freshness of the vegetable. All this can be, I think,
Mm,
can be answered by IoT and blockchain. Great,
definitely.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks. So moving to the next question, this might be a little technical. Anyone interested to answer can answer this question. But hey, what is network effect, and how does this network effect play in this food tech area and e-commerce industry? Like how impact is this network effect creating? Anybody willing to answer?
What network?
A network effect in this business, like how network effect is driving the food tech business.
Let me take a crack at it, and then you can, I guess, you can add. I think the entire concept of network effect is that as you grow different points of delivery or different nodes of any network, right? The economics is such that the unit costs come down significantly, and secondly, the interaction between nodes scales up dramatically. So I think network effect is great for instance, social media. I mean, if you and I have a customized communicating tool uh, between two of us, the usage is only that much, right? But as you can imagine, as the number of users on a platform goes up, in social media, for instance, then obviously the usage of the platform becomes more and more. Now, if you start applying that to the food tech space, right? I think uh, The unit economics is affected by the logistics economics, both for delivery and for sourcing. And the more number of nodes you have, your bargaining power with respect to suppliers of raw material increases, and you're able to standardize a lot more. Similarly, if you have multiple kitchens, you're able to think of a standard automation. So you are able to, your costs of automation go down. Uh, as the network grows of, let's say, food delivery chains, so I think this is what platforms thrive on. As you have more and more restaurants in concentrated in, let's say, a particular geography, uh, then obviously it gives rise to two things. It first of all, it reduces the logistics costs of the platform, because more and more people are ordering, having seen that variety. And why are more and more people ordering? Because now they can, because of network effect, they can see a lot more restaurants out there. So that's how I see it, operational and relevant in the food tech space. I'm sure Shreya and Kingsley can add more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now I understand it. The kind of network you talk, the whole food network, right? The whole food network. I think we missed the e-commerce part of it. Just for example, the e-commerce part of it is difficult in remote areas because they don't have the right infrastructure. The internet is not strong enough. So we are merely discussing about an area with good internet, an area with good access to internet, a populated area, for example, either Tokyo, Delhi, New York, London. So what happens to those people from my grandmother's village? It's a very small village, right? And they probably don't have the internet, they don't have the access to get that. And I don't think the delivery system is ever going to work there because they walk to the farm, they pick their food, they cook their food, they eat their food. So we are not talking about these people that, but first mentioned the street vendors. So how do we include the street vendors in this system? Because all we're talking about right now is high-end restaurants or medium-scale restaurants. There are those food you just love to eat on the street of India or of Nigeria or of any country. So how do we include them in the network? How do we marry them to be able to work with these middle class or middle restaurants to supply food the way you want to have it? So we have a long way to go in all of them. But I do believe that when we look at the failures of 2014, 2015, 2016, when you look at it, it was merely about cost. The cost of production was too high. The cost of paying salaries were too high. The cost of some were able to give, okay, you have to give them tips online. But at the end of it, they were losing about $850,000 a month, or even more than that. I don't want to mention companies, but a lot of companies lost money and they went bankrupt. But now that we have blockchain and we have smarter platforms, how do we make sure that we cut down the cost? How, we cut down the cost, we cut down the time of delivery, then we cut down the cost of logistics. So if we are able to do that, definitely it's going to grow. If we don't have a solution to that, we have a problem. But Sash already told us the solutions to that, so I'm not going to go through it again. So we need to work on the solutions to make sure that we have a doable business that is profitable. Because if it is not profitable, then nobody's going to put their money into it. It's as simple as that.
thanks, Kingsley. Share, you want to add any points here?
I think both Ashish and Kingsley have managed to, cover everything and summarize it as well. So yeah, I'd like to just say the advantage of having a strong network within your supply chain actually, as I mentioned earlier, helps you with scalability, and thus scalability brings down brings in the play of economies of scale and brings down your costs and makes you a profitable business. So yes, your network gives you the power with to become the stronger business that you're looking to be. So it's always more and more restaurants on a platform, more and more suppliers if you are a restaurant, and more payment options that people are doing these days. And yeah, and just be and creating a brand in terms of being omnipresent rather than being selectively present, especially in developing economies like Southeast Asia and Nigeria and other parts of Africa. I think that's how you're supposed to be, right? Like if you're present everywhere, you'd become hard to ignore, and you would then somewhere become more a little more indispensable. So I think that's what it would be like. Everybody, like, you want to come to a point, you want to have that power with your customer where it's easier for the customer to order or to place, just to order through your platform rather than giving somebody a phone call. So yeah, I think network works much better and would take most startups or most platforms to higher grounds.
Thanks, Shreya. So, last but not the least, one question. This is my personal question. Out of curiosity, I want to ask this question. So, don't you think that negotiation doesn't come into the picture in any of this farm to fork industry? Like, we don't negotiate anywhere. A price is set, and we are paying for it. Don't you think there can be some kind of disruption that can happen in the negotiation part? Like a customer can actually negotiate when while buying some fresh food. What are your thoughts on this? Let's start with Ashish.
Oh, it's an interesting idea. I think, I mean, let's look at it from two different angles. One from the consumer angle. Uh, a consumer, perhaps, the objective of negotiating is to get a lower price, right? Or a better deal, right? And because he has choices on the platform, he's obviously able to source for a better deal. So to that extent, you are not bargaining, let's say, with a vendor as to what do you want to pay for a particular meal. In general, restaurants are not usually a place where people bargain anyway, right? So from a consumer standpoint, he is discovering a good deal by just browsing through various options. But I think you have a point in the sense that let's consider a farmer who's got excess produce of potatoes and it's going bad because he doesn't have adequate storage. Could he offer consumers or even a large distributor in a city to bid for his produce so that he can clear stock away? I think that's an excellent point. I mean, it will certainly be handy for something like that. I mean, I know there are some peer-to-peer platforms in Australia, for instance, where people are sharing output out of their mini farms or home gardens, right? Um, and that could be another application for the almost like an auction kind of thing, where people come in and say, "Okay, I'm going to pay so much for your particular produce." So it's an interesting idea, which I guess somebody has to explore it and build an engine for it. But it has application. I can see it have application in some spaces.
Ashish, I think I just let out my $1 billion idea right in front of this show. Like,
You should
some startup will pick it up and start solving it.
No,
you should start
I,
out
I,
with that idea. Yeah.
actually,
Try
in
disputing it.
go ahead,
Sorry.
Ash. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so let me try disputing it. So I think giving negotiating power to your customer is just playing with their opportunity cost. So on a platform, especially on the food tech side of things, giving your customer better deals, vouchers, these cashbacks and all of that, or even a plethora of restaurants, a plethora of options in terms of where to order from, like cloud kitchens, restaurants, whatever, however you want to name them. You are just creating opportunity cost. Like if I were to order pizza right now and I feel like, oh, I don't want to pay 600 rupees for a margarita pizza, I would pay 500 from Domino's or something like that. So I don't think that's valid negotiation, because eventually in countries where we don't have very high food standards, or at least we do have food standards but are not implemented well, negotiation brings in that kind of doubt whether the quality is going to be good or not, you know so that is one thing. So like incorporating negotiation in food items, be it raw material or be it a full on meal, I feel bringing negotiation and trying to bargain for it, you will end up somewhere commercializing the whole process and bringing down the quality and the standard, thus defeating this whole digital transformation that is coming into the food space. Like, while Ashish's idea of this of the fact that having a peer-to-peer bidding or an auction platform for excess storage sounds like a good idea, but the doubt that I would have, even if I was one of those peers, would be, oh, whether this stock is much older than he is processed, he's claiming it to be. And standardizing and image processing is still an issue in most of these countries that we are talking about. So negotiation power comes much later in the game, like how right now all of us are just trying to create a strong digital tech platform. And then later on, 7 years down the line, 5 years down the line, you think, okay, now let's put another layer of deep tech on it, you know? So I'd say that's my view on it. So your billion-dollar idea is slightly fairly early in the much early in the game, at least in the geography that we are talking about. But yeah.
I think Shreya, I've got plenty much of time to implement this idea of my own.
Yeah.
I agree with both
Yes,
of you.
please.
I mean, I always believe quality over over any kind of food. Because food is not something you negotiate. Because you already have a platform, like Harsh said, that you have. For example, you want chicken tikka masala, right? So you have 5 restaurants that have chicken tikka masala, and then you pick the cheapest one of the 5, and then you pick the most expensive one, for example, and the cheapest one. You're going to find out that the quality is different. Now, what would make the quality not different is what a young Indian man. He was 16 years old when this happened in Dubai. I went for a conference, and he actually had a project that he goes from farm to farm, and from they were fishermen. So he goes to buy the produce from the fishermen right away and take them to the restaurant. That way, he is doing the negotiation at the point where they are picking, where they are getting the fish. So it gets cheaper there. It takes it from there. It takes it to the food. The person is going to make the food for you. So that way, you may still get the same quality for a cheaper price, but not from the kitchen itself, but because the chef is getting it at a cheaper price, he can afford to sell it to you at a cheaper price. But if you are expecting to buy it at $10 and sell to you at $5, it's not going to happen. So you may get a bad quality instead of good quality. I think we should concentrate on getting good quality right now, as Sash and Harsh said. But it's a very good point. At the long run, we'll be negotiating, because in life you don't get what you deserve; you get what you negotiate.
Amit, I have one more point to add on this thing, right? I mean, if
Sure.
we
Yeah, this is your
the
project.
whole
Yes, you should.
so if you look at any platform, particularly a food tech platform or any ordering platform, actually the platform is taking away negotiating power from the buyers and sellers, because the bargaining over a period of time with scale and because of its habit forming, the platform is actually capturing that negotiating power. For
Yes.
instance, I mean, if you are sitting on Friday evening with friends and want to order food, uh, you go to Swiggy or you go to Zomato or you go to Grab. Uh, you go there, and what they decide to show you is their choice, right? You can search for it, but the kind of deals that they would give for you on the food that they want to push, where they have better margins, is their choice. So in a way, you are by making it habit forming, platforms have taken away your negotiating power, and it's worse for restaurants. If the restaurant doesn't build its own brand, or if the delivery outlet doesn't build its own brand, uh, a platform can decide to prioritize it as high or
Frustrated,
as
yeah.
well. So it's actually in this whole process, the bargaining power is getting concentrated on platforms rather than the end consumer and the end seller.
Thanks, Ashish. Thanks, Kingsley. Thanks, Shreya. So what I came to understand is, yes, I can think in terms of startup as well. So and Kingsley, yeah, you think in terms of very details, in terms of from the sourcing to the food that we deliver, and the power of negotiation where it can flow in between. So thanks for that. So last but not the least, we are 1 hour up. So any closing remarks that you want to give before we end the show?
I just want
Ashish.
to.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead,
Kingsley, go
Ashish.
ahead.
Okay, I just want to tell you guys. I mean, this was a beautiful discussion. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, and thank like talking for making this happen again. It was a beautiful discussion. Thank you very much, and
Thanks,
thank you,
Kingsley.
Ahmed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Likewise, I second what Kingsley said. I think very interesting discussion and hearing various points of view from different geographies. Uh, but it's a very exciting sector. So I think we can keep looking at opportunities for the next several years in this space, and there will be lots to come. I can tell you. I think the next 10 years we can keep looking at opportunities in this space. So I'm excited with this space.
Thank you, Ashish. Shreya.
Thank you, Amrit, and thank you, Latukin, for having me. It's always nice to come on board and have a great discussion. So, and this one was fruitful as well. Maybe we can make use of your $1 billion idea for our fund. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Kingsley, for coming on to the show today and sharing your insightful thoughts on food tech industry, on e-commerce industry, on the supply chain side, from farm to fork, and then my $1 billion idea. Thank you. Until
Yeah.
next time, we'll meet again on a new topic. Until then, bye bye.
Have a great week ahead. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.